Welcome to the Recovery Effect Podcast with Bill Vineyard. Recovery is Bill's passion and his life's work of 30 plus years. Now it's your turn to experience the Recovery Effect, a powerful mix of recovery, spirituality, philosophy, and most importantly, living life as your true self. Now here's your host, Bill Vineyard.
You know, I've been asked this question numerous times throughout my career as an alcohol and drug counselor, and that is, why won't they stop? Why don't they quit drinking and drugging? Or why do they keep relapsing? That's always been a real mystery to some people. A mystery to the judicial system, the judges that sentence them there. A mystery to the probation officers because they can't figure it out. Doctors, lawyers, wives, mothers, fathers. It's all kind of a mystery. Why won't they stop? They say they want to, but yet they won't stop. Well, you know, through the 38 years of working with alcoholics and drug addicts, I think I've found the reason. It's kind of a secret. Not many people know it. And that is, the reason they don't stop is because they don't want to. Yes, they just simply don't want to. I know that you're probably looking for a more philosophical or psychological reason as to why they don't stop, but it's really simple. They just don't want to. They're not dealing with their mommy issues or chemical imbalance. It's not their thinking that's screwed up that's keeping them drunk and high. They simply just don't want the sober and clean life. Let's not get this confused with they can't stop. Like that podcast lecture, the first one I think I did is on powerless. You know, alcoholics and drug addicts can't stop. There's no question about that. They have lost the power of choice to drink or to not drink, to drug or not drug. That's not what we're talking about here. Because you see, they haven't lost the power of choice in regards to being willing and wanting to do what it takes to stay sober and clean. They still have that choice. Just as a person that has diabetes and he's given insulin tablets in order to treat his diabetes. They've probably lost the choice over whether they can be diabetic or not. There's no question they're going to be a diabetic. But they haven't lost the power of choice to take the medicine or not. And that's where these folks are at. They've lost the power of choice over drink or not to drink. But you see, there's a way out of that. And that is by working the 12-step program. But they don't want that. Therefore, they don't want that lifestyle that the 12 steps offer. They would much rather stay where they're at or think they can fix it and make it better rather than to completely give themselves to the simple program of recovery. They simply don't want it. Now, don't get me wrong. They'll tell you they want it, but I think sometimes what they really mean is, I don't want the consequences that go along with my drinking and drug use. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to get divorced. I don't want the money problems that go along with it. I just don't want all them consequences that happen when I drink. I'd like to drink with no consequences. Well, of course, that's never going to happen. But like the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, many of us pursue that type of thinking to the gates of insanity or death. Somehow, some way, we're going to be able to successfully use drugs and drink again. I just got to get this thing tweaked right, and it won't ever happen again. These consequences will never occur. I think deep down inside the alcoholic, he kind of wants it, and I think he even admits that he kind of wants it. And if it falls in his lap, he'll probably take it. But to see to kind of want it and to kind of don't want it is to not want it at all. You can't half measure this thing. You can't half want it and half not. That's ridiculous. Half measures will avail us nothing. And that's exactly what you're going to get when you half want the program and you half don't. You're not going to get anything. You're just going to go back to the status quo, man. Go back to your drinking and drug life. Another trick the addict and alcoholic plays on himself is he says he really wants it, but he's unwilling to go to any length to get it. I mean, I've had a lot of people have really good intentions of wanting to get clean and sober, but when they found out what they had to do it, no way, Jose. You mean I got to go to 3-4 meetings a week, get a sponsor, work those steps? I got to tell someone all my life story? And I got to pray in the morning and pray at night? Pay back all that money I owe my parents? I mean, they might not say this out loud, but down inside they're thinking, man, that's just too much work. I've talked to a number of people in groups and asked them, and they'll tell me that's a problem. They say that once they started to look at getting sober and found out what they had to do, they just go, that's too much work. I mean, like drinking and drugging isn't too much work. I mean, you got to get up every day and find your fix, got to get high, got to get the money, got to get out of jail, got to pay the lawyer, got to get groceries, got to pay the rent. Oh, crap, I spent all my money on my dope or my drinking. Come on. How much work is that? This work that you put into the program to stay sober is a lot less. What I really think they do is look at that thing and they're just not wanting to make that type of moral commitment. And they don't want to give up their old lifestyle. I mean, they kind of really like it. And they say that's where all my friends are at. So not being willing to go to any length to get it is just not wanting it enough. Because if you want it enough, you're willing to pay the price to get it. I mean, we pay the price to get other things that we want. We'll go to great lengths to buy a car or other things that we really, really want. We'll pay enormous prices and sacrifices to get those things. So if you don't want something, you're sure not going to be willing to go to any length to get it. I mean, can you imagine that? That would be insane, wouldn't it? I really don't want this thing, but I'm going to go to any length to get it. No, that's crazy. That will not happen. You absolutely have to want to get sober and clean. You absolutely have to at least want to change your life and be a better human being. And if you really, really wanted that and you wanted it bad enough, of course you'd be willing to go to any length to get it. I had a judge one time tell me, Bill, we know that AA doesn't work. Well, I don't know that. But I really had to wonder why he felt that a program that has been said to be the greatest social movement of the 21st century, that's in every free country in the world, doesn't work. I think I found the answer to that question, and I'm going to share it with you. You know, I read, and I think it's either AA Comes of Age or Not God, one of those books, and AA did a survey on itself one time and come up with that 50% of the people that walked through the doors their first time to an AA meeting stayed sober. And then they went on to say that of the 50% that didn't make it that first time around, half of them, which would be another 25%, when they came back, they made it. Now, of course, they don't know what happened to those last 25% that didn't come back, but the point is they had a 75% recovery rate. Those are phenomenal statistics there. But you want to know the reason I think they're so high? Because every person that probably walked through that door was in some kind of crisis. These people really wanted it, those 75% people. They were sick and tired of being sick and tired. They were beat down. They were willing to go to any length to get it. Therefore, AA had way better recovery rates back then than they have now. Of course, judges started sending people to treatment and making them get their AA slip signed. Well, all of a sudden, all these groves of people start going to AA not wanting it. And I assure you, if you don't want something, you're not going to get it, right? Well, they didn't get it because they didn't want it. And then they wonder, well, why didn't AA fix those people? It doesn't work. When it's simply that the person didn't work it. And the reason he didn't work it is because he didn't want it. It is that simple, folks. I'm not saying that them sending these people there under force was a bad thing. I think their intentions were well intended, but I just don't think they took into the fact that these people do not want what AA or NA has to offer. The good that came of that, of course, is that they learned a lot. And when they got ready, they knew what to do and they knew where to come, which means that, yeah, they eventually got it. And it was a good thing to send them there. But I think what people mostly forget is that once you force people into something they don't want, you're not going to have that higher recovery rate. You're not going to have it. It's going to take them a while. But you know what? By forcing those people in there, I think, this is my opinion, there's no stats on this, but I'm pretty sure that if they did do a study, it would confirm this, that because they were forced into AA, that people got clean and sober at a younger age. I went to AA when I was 28 years old, and they almost kicked me out of my first meeting because they didn't think I belonged there because I was so young. I'm not lying. That's exactly what happened. But nowadays you look around in the AA groups, and there are young people in there. People getting sober at 16, 15, 17 years old. So I think the people that walked through those doors back in those days were totally beat down, and they was looking for anything. Any solution, and they were willing to go to any lengths to get it. That's just not the case nowadays. A lot of them just aren't ready yet. But when they get ready, they'll know what to do. I know when I came here to Wichita, there was 30 groups in Wichita. Now I think there's 150. Well, something's going on. I think forcing those people into treatment eventually converted to good AA members and good NA members. At first, maybe they were relapsing a lot and the statistics looked really bad, but eventually they came back. And they came back and got the program. Thank God for that. But what really happened is that they finally came to a point where they wanted it. And when they wanted it, they was willing to go to any length to get it. And when they're willing to go to any length to get it, rarely will we see a person fail. That's where the success comes in. Now, can you imagine living your life like that? If you could take that principle right there, to want something and to want it bad, to want something and want it bad enough you're willing to pay any price to get it, can you imagine if you took that principle right there into your life and just used that principle there? You realize how successful your life could be? The potential that could produce for you? I mean, let's say that you wanted to be a good father. I mean, you wanted more than anything to be a good father. What would you do? Well, you'd probably find somebody in the program that's a good father, and you'd sit down there after a meeting, a cup of coffee, and ask him, what do you do to be a good father? And you'd be willing to take his advice. You would be willing to get rid of your character defects that's keeping you from being a good father. Maybe you'd be willing to get rid of your resentments and your selfishness and you being inconsiderate, things like that, because you want to be a good father. You're willing to adopt principles into your life that reflect that you're a good father. You want to be loving and kind and giving and considerate of your children. And you adopt those principles into your life and you get rid of the character defects that's causing you not to be a good father, and you take advice from people who are good fathers. I mean, what will happen? You'll be a good father because you took that principle, I want to be a good father, and converted it in, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be a good father because I want it that bad. But make no mistake about it, it started with I want. I mean, when you look at your life and you say to yourself, why is my life in this kind of a mess? Why don't I have relationships? Why am I going through a divorce? Why did what's-his-name leave me? Why does my parents not want anything to do with me? Do you really want to be a good child to your parents? Do you really want to be a good parent to your children? A good brother, good sister? A good worker to your employer? Well, think that you just have to want it really bad. And you want it bad enough that you'll break out those books and find out what kind of principles that you have to live by to get that. And if you look at a principle and you say, oh man, I don't want to give that up, that's too hard, then you don't want it bad enough. But if you want to be something bad enough, you'll do whatever it takes to get that. You can take that into anywhere, any part of your life. Even if you wanted to be a millionaire, think about it a minute. If you really, really, really wanted to be a millionaire more than anything else in the world, and you're willing, because of that want, to go to any length, do you realize what potential that would open up? What creativity would just bulge out of you, just pour out? You would find a way. You'd think about it day and night. You'd read books. You'd study on it. You'd save money. You'd be calculated in your decisions. You wouldn't be reckless in everything. You would do everything it takes to be a millionaire. You don't have to be educated to be a millionaire. You don't have to have a lot of money to be a millionaire. You don't have to have money to start up a business to do that. You would find a way to make it happen. And for the heavyweights in the program who might be thinking, I want to be a better human being. I want to be a better person. I want to get rid of anything and everything that's stopping me from being a better human being. Then you look at the same thing. You look at the same principle. I want to be a better person more than anything else. I'm sick of being the way I am. And that want to should convert to go to any lengths. I'm willing to go to any lengths. And you find the principles. You find the character defect you have. And if it's selfishness, you say, okay, what kind of principle do I need to adopt in my life to get rid of those character defects? And you go to work on it. Why? Because you want to. Because you want to be a better human being, and you're willing to pay the price to do that. I don't know if many people feel like that or not. I think a lot of people right now just want to do enough to get by. They don't want to set any state records on being a good person. They just kind of like stay where they're at, just enough to stay sober. I don't know how that works, but that's the impression I get. I think what they're really trying to do is get God and sobriety at the lowest possible price that they have to pay, to make the least amount of changes that they have to make, to hold on to as much of the garbage as they can hold on to without having to let go of it to get sober and clean. They want to buy God and His program at garage sale prices. But what if they really wanted to be better people? I just want to be a better person. And if they wanted it really bad, man, could you imagine where they could go with that? That'd be a beautiful story, wouldn't it? So you can see where you can take that want to in a lot of areas of your life and turn that into a lot of potential, and take that potential and turn that into actuality to make it real. But you will not do that until you want to, until you want it. Think of the life you want. I mean, really sit down and just give it some kind of time and concentration and ask yourself, what does it take to get the kind of life I want? And then ask yourself, if after you find out what that is, ask yourself, am I willing to do that? Am I willing to pay the price it takes to get the life I want? And if you're not, then quit whining that you don't have it. Nobody's going to give it to you, and they shouldn't. You're not qualified if you're looking for someone to give it to you, and you don't need anyone to give it to you. You can get it yourself. Every goal that a person has a way to get there, has things that you have to do to accomplish this goal. I know when I wanted to start a treatment center for alcoholics and drug addicts, me and my wife were janitors for over, I think it was 18 months. We cleaned a big old Stockyard Exchange building every day and waxed it and mopped it and cleaned stools and emptied spit cans. And then after we was done with that, about 2 or 3 in the morning, we'd go to an insurance building and clean it. Why? Because we needed that money to live on while we started our treatment center. Because we wanted it, and we were willing to go to any length to get it, even being a janitor. We paid the dues to do that. I think it's pretty disrespectful to demand something that you haven't earned, something that you haven't even wanted bad enough to get it yourself. And what's even worse is when somebody has paid the price and they've been willing to go to any length to get it, that once they get it, they catch a lot of crap from people who don't have it. And really, only thing that separates the ones that have it and the ones that don't is the want to and the willingness to go to any length to get it. There it is, folks. It's right in your lap, or the ball's in your corner, as they say. You have to want it. And that want it leads to the willingness to go to any length to get it. And if you can adopt that attitude, I mean, if you can really make that principle a major principle in your life, a principle that you're not willing to compromise on at all, that you are going to live by that principle and die by that principle, I almost can guarantee you that you will reach the goal that you're after. Because how do you stop a person like that? It's impossible. I mean, you'd have to shoot them in the head. Because a person like that, if they can form that kind of attitude and commit to that kind of principle, that person's unstoppable. You won't be able to stop him, especially if he's working a good spiritual program, because he's got God and all that too. There's no way he's going to lose. So it's your decision. When you look at your life and you don't like the way it is, or you look at yourself and you don't like the way you are, just figure out what you want and see if you want it bad enough. And if you don't, then at least be honest with yourself and say, obviously I don't want this. Because if I wanted it, I'd be willing to go to any length to get it. If you're not showing that, you don't really want it. And if you don't really want it, you don't have anyone to blame but yourself. I guess the next question we should ask is, how do we get a want to? That's a really, really tough question. And I don't know if I can really answer it to the depths that it needs to be answered. But maybe we can walk down that road a little bit, and there'll be another sign as we walk that points us in that direction. I think one of the ways that we can get a want to is that we have to start from the premise that we have a want to. We could ask God to please remove everything in us that doesn't want to. I know that might sound simplistic, or maybe you might even think it's fanatic, but the point is, I've seen that work, so I know it could work for you also. And I think another thing that you need to do is to not want the life that you have. to look at it for what it really is and ask yourself, is this the way I want to die? Are these the memories I want to leave my loved ones with? Am I satisfied with the accomplishments that I've accomplished since I've been on earth? Is this the way I want to spend my life? And if it isn't, that might help you to want to a little bit more. But you know what usually works, what I've saw that works best for most, is pain. Going to jail, losing your family, just these major crises that occur in people's lives, they produce that want to. Nowadays, it's pretty hard for alcoholics and drug addicts to get sober when they're in a crisis because everybody's trying to save them. Everybody wants to slam them in treatment real fast or do this or do that, and they don't really get to experience the pain that's necessary to develop the want to. Even if they're feeling a little emotionally down, like a little depressed over their life, they give them medication to get them through that. And therefore, they don't really feel the extent of the pain that they've caused and the pain that they should be experiencing to create this gigantic want to, which would produce a desire to go to any lengths. They just don't go through that as much as they used to. I can remember back in the early days when I first got to AA, the old-timers used to tell me, Bill, don't cheat that person out of their pain. They need every bit of that. Have you noticed that no matter how much treatment a person goes through, no matter how many times he goes through it, and no matter whether the treatment is good treatment or bad treatment, in the end, they still have to come back to a 12-step program? In the end, that's what works best for most. They've got to work those steps. You know, I think that we could go back into the days of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. The days when they walked into those AA halls because they were so tired and beat down that they wanted it so bad that when Bill told them what to do to get it, they did it. I think we can go back to those days, back to the days when it said, I am responsible. And we are. We're responsible for our life and how we live it. We have the tools at our feet, at our disposal, to achieve anything in this life within reason, to fulfill the purpose that we have been put on this earth for. We have those tools. We have the tools to be better human beings. We have the first, second, third, fourth, fifth step. We can clean house. We have the tools to get right with the world, to make amends for the harms that we've done. And we also have the tools to keep on growing as human beings. 10, 11, and 12 step. I mean, we have all these beautiful tools. We just need to pick them up and put them into action. And can't we take this want to into all our affairs? I mean, if you want to buy a home, find out what it takes to do it. And if you really want it, then do whatever it takes to get it. Or a new car. These principles work everywhere. They're spiritual principles. They'll work there as well as they do with your sobriety, as long as we practice these principles in all our affairs. How else could it be any different? If we want something bad enough and are willing to go to any length to get it, our chances of getting that increase considerably. So why don't you sit down and ask yourself after you pray, and as the big book says, ask God to direct our thinking, what do I really want in my life? What do you and God really want for your life? Take some quiet time. Shut that phone off and shut that television off and just sit there. And you'll feel it. The big book says the right answer will come if you really want it. Yeah, you got to want the right answer. And ask God, what's the best for your life? What's your purpose? And once you get that answer, now it's just a matter of figuring out what it takes to get there and then just doing it and trusting God through the process. I maintain that your whole life, your spiritual life, your material life, will be based on this right here. If you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, watch this, here it comes, then you're going to have to take certain steps. Look at that. 3 beautiful ideas. If you want, willing to go to any length, take certain steps. Think about that. Think about your life and the things that you want. Are you willing to go to any length? And if you are, then put it into action and take those steps to get it. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your life. And until we meet again, may God bless you and keep you. May He guide you in all these endeavors. And as you trudge this road of happy destiny, may you always be reminded that you need God.
Thanks for listening to The Recovery Effect with Bill Vineyard. Check out more at therecoveryeffect.com and facebook.com/therecoveryeffect. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes.